Thank you for listening to Dream 10X Radio, where we interview people attempting to live extraordinary lives. Our twofold purpose is to both direct and inspire people bold enough to do the same. Dream 10X. Face your fears and make your life count. Hey, it's your boy JC. Thanks for tuning in to Dream 10X episode number 41. And today we are here in Kansas City with our friends Michelle Kosmachek and Michelle Fagan. Welcome. Thanks for talking to us. And this is Dr. Capel. And this year we're going to lead off with doing a couple of series on mindfulness and maybe a little meditation and you know, doing positive self-talk and dealing with interpersonal verbal skills and stuff like that. So with this first episode, Dr. Capel here is going to lead us through a quick seminar on mindfulness.
Yes.
And so tell us what is mindfulness? Why do I care? Why do we care?
Yeah.
How's it going to help me in the professional environment?
Absolutely. So
How's it going to help me make more money?
It's about being intentional and having gratitude. So the John Kabat-Zinn definition of mindfulness involves paying attention on purpose in the present moment without judgment. And the key thing is without judgment. And so like that's where the negative self-talk comes in. So if we're looking at ourselves in the mirror with intention and we're like, oh my God, my boobs are uneven, or I got this belly roll and I looked in the mirror today and instead of appreciating that, wow, look great, whatever, I am like, look, I have wrinkles. And I'm 47, I have wrinkles now. And so it's about changing your framework and your mindset to really having no judgment and just thinking about what's happening in the moment. So there's a lot that goes with it. And
Well, so there's one thing about mindfulness in terms of recognizing things. So
yeah,
you're recognizing your wrinkle,
yeah.
but is it also bad to like is being mindful also being concerned about things, or is it what is it? Like, so I'm aware of things, but
Sure. So it's yes, being concerned, but it's recognizing the concern. So if you're stressed, so for example, one of my favorite things in the grocery line is I get really stressed out in the grocery line, and it's the waiting, and it's the when am I gonna get out of here because there's people around me, and that's stressful in and of itself. And how much money am I gonna spend? We split the bill, so I've got to make sure I do the calculation. So it's just a lot going on. So recognizing that and seeing what's coming up in my body, saying,
mm,
okay, I'm feeling stressed, and your body knows before you do when you're having an issue. So, for example, all of a sudden you recognize probably your gut having issues, or your body's tense, or for me, it's like all of my jaw. But recognizing that about yourself and recognizing what's happening to you in that moment. And so it's non-judgmental. It's like, okay, I'm stressed. Okay, I recognize that.
mm,
Let's think about that. What's coming up for me right now, and why is it cause of it?
I think there's another element just to totally
Yeah.
interrupt your thought pathway, but like there is the self-talk where you look and you're like, oh my God, I have wrinkles. Ugh, I'm getting old now. And then there's just the acknowledgement of I have wrinkles, right?
Yes.
And that's where mindfulness and stuff like that comes in, where it's not necessarily positive or negative. It's just an acknowledgement of like reality.
Yep.
Of, instead of it being like, I went to a walk today, but I didn't do my workout. I went for a walk today. Hard stop, right? Like it's the decision not to dig into that everything has to be labeled as a positive or a negative, that things are just are, and there isn't like positive and negative don't really play into it. And so that to me is when it comes to mindfulness, is recognizing that piece is I'm in the grocery store. It's not ideal. And then we go away. It's not where I'm in the grocery store. It's not ideal. I hate this place. I want it, like
Yeah.
it's changing it from something that has to have some sort of like label to it to neutralizing it as just a state of being.
So do you practice mindfulness?
No. I have great intentions, and I have like, in spurts I can do a really good job, but I'm not great at it in an intentional way. It is, where something happens and I'm like all these negative things and I'm like, oh wait, that's actually not useful, and I need to reiterate it in a different way. But it's not I'm not a meditator. I can't do yoga, not because I can't physically do yoga, but because my attention span is not yoga-esque.
Yeah.
Like so the traditional mindfulness activities are not things that tend to resonate with me right now. But there is this kind of like constant like voice in the back of my head because I do have a lot of really negative self-talk, which we've talked about in the past. Is I have a lot of it, and so then like now I'm building up the voice that says, "Oh, hold on," and that to me is where I'm at in the mindfulness piece. Instead of it getting lost in the negative self-talk, is that little voice in the back that says, "Ah, maybe we rephrase that in a different way."
Mm.
So as much as I would love to say I'm super intentional about things and I do all of the stuff the way that you're supposed to because you read the books, it just isn't where I'm at.
Yeah.
Where I'm at is this is my space. I have all this trauma. I have all of this like dark and scary stuff that I've been going through for the last several years. And now I can start to focus in on me. And those first steps are small. The first steps are let's rechange the way that we think about ourselves. Let's rechange the way we think about our environment and building the separate spaces back into my house instead of everything just becoming like this constant movement of like bleh. I don't know what word it's supposed to be, but bleh
It's
is the only
appropriate, yeah.
one. So, you know, I mean, I guess you could say that that is mindfulness in a lot of ways because it's changing the way that I'm thinking, but it's not your traditional textbook type of mindfulness. So,
Yeah, well, it actually is because you are aware of that judgment and then negating it. So absolutely, it's mindfulness.
but it took a lot of other people to help me find that too,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
again, when I think about mindfulness, it's not necessarily a solo
Yeah.
practice. It's a community of people who are here to save me from myself.
Well, that's so interesting because even at work, when I mean, I'm working on my certification, but I recognize all the time, or somebody people call me out all the time from my network saying, "All right, you're being judgmental about this scenario," and it's oh crap.
Yeah. I
So you
cannot
need
judge
people.
you way better than I cannot judge me.
Yeah,
Like I
exactly.
can
Yep.
be like, I am not judging you. You make your own choices. You do what you got to do. But for me, it's like, Michelle, here's all the ways that you have screwed this up and that you're failing and all that other stuff. So
Yeah.
the self judgment piece is much more difficult in the mindfulness space than just acknowledging and accepting without judgment when it comes from an external source.
Yeah, totally. What about you? Do you practice mindfulness?
I think I practice it from a different perspective, and it might be bad. I'm gonna just throw that out there because I've not studied any of this
Non-judgmental.
stuff, right? I think that I would probably use it more like an excuse, like, oh, I have
Mm.
wrinkles. I'm 42. I probably should at this point, or I'm
Okay.
gaining weight, or I'm not in as good of shape as I would have. But that's what happens when you get older, right? Like, and so I'm thinking that's where my mind space is, and that may not be healthy or right, but I unfortunately might be going that trend.
Validating. I'm
Yeah,
validating
like
my
I'm,
own like
yeah, I'm
I'm
not 30
32 something,
anymore.
but also I'm an old person now.
I'm more tired. I'm getting older. I mean, that's maybe a terrible mindset, but I have 3 kids and we're very busy and running around all the time, and maybe that's my defense mechanism of why I don't do
Mm.
things. Maybe it's
Hmm.
just, and so I don't know if that's a form of mindfulness or just an excuse, which that might
I
be.
think there's a part to it. I remember my mom saying one time, she's like, I looked down at my hands and I don't know whose hands these are.
Mm.
Like they got like when did I get old people hands, right? When did that happen? And so I think that there is an acknowledgement of like things are not going to be the same, right? Like when I teach people at the gym and they're like, well, I want to get this part of my body to do these things. And I'm like, listen, you get fit, but you don't choose what fit looks
Yeah.
like. Your body's going to do what your body is going to do.
Yeah.
And so there is, I think, a lot of respect in being able to acknowledge that this is a part of life.
Yeah,
And,
right. Yeah.
like I'm going to end up with the veins and all the stuff in the hands because that's what happens in life. So I'm going to give you an A+ in it.
Thank you.
I concur. A plus.
I'm trying.
I like that though, being aware of aging
Yeah.
and sitting with it. We're all gonna get really old, and that process is, as you're younger and you're maturing, it's exciting, right? But then when you hit a certain point, you start getting older, and it's a little bit scary to know that it's a downward slope from here on. And I think that's a good thing to sit with. Like
Yeah.
I'm aware of the process of what's happening, and I'm okay with it, I guess.
Yeah.
Try to get used to it. I think while we're talking, two other things that came to my mind that are important. Having a mindful mindset is dealing with fear and anger,
Mm-hmm.
because those are two emotions that are very strong with me. And when they occur, like I've had points in my life where I've been really afraid and really angry and have not been happy with my response to those.
Yeah.
And so my hope, or I think that being more mindful of myself in those situations will allow me to take a breath and sit with that feeling and be okay with it, and then respond better. That's my
Yeah, and that's where like practicing mindfulness really comes into play. And it doesn't need to be like this full on traditional 30-minute meditation. It could be 10 seconds. Just try and as soon as you wake up in the morning, 10 seconds, just being intentional and seeing what that feels like. And then maybe building on that. And maybe morning isn't your time. Maybe it's evening. For me, it's when I go to bed, and I'm very intentional when I go to bed, at least taking 30 seconds to think through and be mindful.
mm.
So it's finding that right your own biorhythms and what works for you, but that intentional practice will help you when you're in those situations. Uh, to be able to like think through saying, all right, I'm recognizing how my body's reacting. My heart rate is increasing. My hands are sweaty. I'm having a stressful moment. Let me go back to what I've practiced with my mindfulness. Like lifting weights. The more you lift weights, the better you get, the stronger you get, and your form is better, and so it increases over time. So it's the same thing with that practice.
You know, one of the things like with anger that has always stuck to me is anger is a secondary emotion.
Yeah.
We treat it as a primary emotion, but it's secondary.
Yep.
Anger doesn't just happen, it's triggered by something else,
Mhm.
whether it be you know, like feeling of feeling inadequate, feelings of stress, feelings of sadness, feelings of fear. Those are the things that drive anger. And so whenever I'm angry, I'm always just like, okay, you know, sometimes it's just that my kids are annoying me, but the annoyance is the actual thing that I need to manage. It's
Yeah.
not the anger. The anger is just the outlet. It's the secondary feeling that comes from it. So
Yeah, that's so true. And so I think about like meetings too, and like so just meeting to meeting to meeting. And we live in a very high stress world, and that's everything from going to the grocery store. It's very stressful, just the traffic getting there. So we're constantly in this fight or flight mode, and constantly in that trigger. And so how do we like get out of that? And the one thing, at least I recognize, is I have 7 to 14 meetings per day, and I'm exhausted, and I don't even have time to go to the bathroom half the time. So, and that's not just me; it's our whole organization. And so, jumping from meeting to meeting to meeting, my sympathetic nervous system is triggered. I'm in fight or flight mode. I'm on to the next one, doing the next thing, and I'm not thinking about what I'm doing or intentional.
Hmm.
And so the one thing that we've started doing is building a mindfulness program. And the start at each meeting, we say something as simple as let's take the three deepest breaths that you take in a day, just to trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. So when you take a really deep breath, it triggers the vagus nerve, which triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and restore. And so it gets you out of
Hmm.
that, ah! And then we have more productive meetings. So like, how can we? And so it doesn't have to again be this whole big thing. It's just taking a deep breath and being intentional about what that breath feels like. So it's pretty cool things you can do. But I think that society is like just constantly triggering this fight or flight chaotic.
How do people respond to you when you say, "Let's take some deep breaths at the start of the meeting"?
So it's so funny because this podcast made me really nervous, and I wanted to do it with the Michelles. Yeah.
Michelle Square.
Michelle, yeah.
But at work, like I come in and I'm a disruptor, so this is what we're going to be doing at work. And so that people just accept that. With my friends, it's like very different and awkward. You guys know me.
That makes you
So-
more nervous than coworkers?
Absolutely, you guys make me way more nervous than doing it with coworkers.
Really?
Yep.
Awesome.
Evil. So yeah, at work, so I do it, and then people typically there's a few people I'm like, find a way to be you in this moment. If you don't want to participate, that's cool. But for most people, they're really appreciative. And so my very first meeting that I led with all of our training officers, and it was 78 people in the agency, I said, okay, we're going to start with a 5-minute mindful start. And wow, that totally transformed how they saw me and how we interacted.
Hmm.
So yeah.
I love that. Like, I don't think that that's common at all.
Yeah,
Right? There is
no.
obviously Zoom fatigue was a real thing, especially in the past couple of years. You know, and a lot of times when people are like, what am I supposed to do? They're like, I don't have time to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on, because talk about how screwed up and flipped your priorities are, where you are going to sacrifice a human basic need
Mhm.
in order to like It's literally 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They will wait, you know, like you can be like, I'll be back in 2 minutes. I've never had anybody who'd be like, I need to take a quick bio break. I'll be right back. And I'm like, absolutely not,
Yeah,
right?
expectations you are here.
Yeah.
You mean you're going to breathe during this meeting? Did not sign on for that. But we've become so programmed to sacrifice self at the expense of others.
Yes.
And like that, I think, is a really problematic, like deeper issue, is to where like, I am a human person. I am somebody. I matter. I have needs, and I'm going to meet those needs, and that will allow me to show up better for the rest of you all.
Yeah.
But I can't be good for everybody else if I'm not even taking the 5 minutes to go and like, I just need 5 minutes, and then I will be right back, and I'll be way better for you.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we've created a society where we can't ask for that, and we can't say that out loud, and I think it's really problematic. So when I'm working with clients, that's one of the things where I'm like, what do you need? You're
Yeah.
not getting it. So what do you need? Well, I need this. Okay. How do you ask for that? And if you are uncomfortable asking for that, then that's a separate issue that we need to start to address. But the reality of it is that your needs are just as important as everybody else's, and you shouldn't minimize them at the expense of other folks.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Also,
Do it. Get some
too
water.
many meetings.
There are too many meetings.
If you have so many meetings that you cannot excuse yourself to eat, get
Yeah.
a breath break,
Yeah.
go take a walk,
That's
go to the
an
restroom,
organizational
you've got too
problem.
many meetings in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. And how do we transform the future of work to mitigate that?
I tell people all the time when I was like, think about how expensive a meeting is. Think
Yeah.
about how much money each one of those people cost in that meeting. And then is that really a good use of your time?
Yep.
Like if it is not worth it being there, you are worth more than sitting in that meeting. If it can be caught up in, you know, the follow-up notes, then go that way. You know,
Yeah.
it's that continued lesson of you want to put work at like the lowest rung possible. Like you want to be able to push it down as far as possible. And sometimes that is a Teams chat. And sometimes it's a quick text message or an email. That's the cheapest avenue to accomplish your goal. It's often the quickest.
That's
So
true.
meetings are expensive. If it's not worth the money, then don't call that meeting.
Or cancel it if you don't need to have it. You don't need to meet to meet.
Yeah.
So
And just because somebody puts that meeting on your calendar doesn't mean you're responsible for going. Sure. Like you decided to meet this meeting. Hold on, I might need some more information, or I need an agenda or a pre-read. And if you can't give me these things so I'm prepared for the meeting, then we're not going to have it.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, again, ask for what you need. If these are the things that you need, then you say, this is what this is. And if you can't meet this need, then we're not going to do it.
I really like the asking for what you need piece of it. I think I'm going to start with my teammates because they're obviously having the same struggle. I think I'm going to use that phrase with
Right.
them.
There's nicer ways to say it than my way, right?
I love your way.
But the reality of it is, at the end of the day, all you're doing is saying, I need this in order to be productive.
Yeah.
And we as partners in work or in play or whatever are here to help to support the people around us.
Yeah.
So if I work best by these things happening and you need to see me at my best, then help me appreciate and accomplish the things that I need. So
And you guys are both in organizational development. You're not? What is your background?
like
What do you
employee
do?
benefits and a little bit in HR, but
Okay.
not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to share a little bit. What
Yeah.
in organizational development is what you do. Okay.
yes.
Thank
I'm not in that world.
you.
I do the people, she does the policies and the practice.
Okay.
She gives us the direction to go to, and I'm like, feelings, bring them to me.
You guys should start your own company together.
We tried this once, and then it turns out neither one of us really like sourcing clients.
Okay.
So that was a big miss. We need that person.
Okay. Okay.
Hiring plan.
Yep, it's coming.
Oh my goodness.
So do you have anything more on your notes that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Give me 2
Oh.
seconds. We're gonna do a quick mindfulness exercise. So if
Okay.
you guys want to go grab a beverage of your choice, just pour the beverage, bring it to you, and I'll do a spoon exercise. And also, we're gonna do some recordings later on that we'll have posted where I'm gonna walk you through some mindfulness activities. So if you want to check out that way, you're welcome to do so. We are going to. We'll give you 2 seconds to grab your beverage. I'll go very slowly here.
You don't want to show any brands on here. So.
So, hide your branding. Okay. So, so this exercise in particular is oftentimes we sit in front of the TV and or sit on the couch and eat as quickly as possible or drink as quickly as possible and not even paying attention to what we're doing. So one mindful thing that you can do is eating and drinking with intention. And if it's that sitting at the table versus the couch, or if it's just taking a minute just to appreciate the beverage that you have. Like in the morning, I just pour my coffee down my throat to get it in my system. But when I take a minute and actually experience the coffee, I appreciate it more and I get better effects from it. So we have effects. So I'm going to walk us through a mindful activity around this. So you can close your eyes, you can lower your gaze, you can stare wherever you like, you can stare at each other. I don't care. Well, let's start by taking just a deep breath.
Oh, was I not supposed to open it?
No.
No.
It's okay.
I failed the class
No
already.
judgment.
Just like high
No
school.
judgment. All right, so go ahead and take a deep breath to get started. And feel that can in your hand or feel the glass. What does it feel like? Is it smooth? Is it rough? What's the temperature? Is it hot? Is it cold? Does it make your hand chilly? Pick up the can. Feel that weight. What does it feel like? And go ahead and open it and really hear that sound when it cracks. What comes up for you when you hear that sound? Is it feelings of joy, feelings of anticipation? All right, now you're going to smell. Really take in all those senses. What does it smell like to you? Is it fruity? Citrusy? Can you smell any other kinds of notes in there? All right, now you're going to take a sip and don't swallow. Hold it in your mouth. What are you tasting? What are you feeling? Are you feeling bubbles? Are you tasting all those notes you just smelled? When you're ready, go ahead and swallow. And really feel that sense of gratitude about something about that experience. The fact you're drinking with friends. The beautiful flavor. Whatever comes up for you. And when you're ready, cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, but that's a positive mindful experience. Cheers. And so that's easy to do. It's easy to think about all those nice experiences from taking a drink. But what if it's a really bad experience that you wanted to sit with? It's the same thing, right?
Can you give an example of what you're talking about?
Say somebody just flipped you off in traffic,
Mm-hmm.
and you've been stuck in traffic for the last 2 hours,
Mm-hmm. And you're raging.
and you're raging. Um, you want to do the same exercise, right? You want to sit with that, right? You
Yeah.
want to, and it's very uncomfortable. You know, I don't want to think about this person who just flipped me off.
Yeah.
But that's what mindfulness is, right? You want to sit with that experience and not react, and just what does that feel like?
And it's mindfulness and emotional intelligence
And that's
too.
what's really hard because
Yeah.
I'm boiling over and I don't want to sit with that.
And part of it is getting so when you're in that mode, your amygdala is taking over. And
Yeah.
so that's
Right.
where you're not in your thinking brain, you're in your reptilian brain and you're
Right.
in that fight or flight mode. And so it's getting yourself out of that fight or flight mode and back into your, again, your prefrontal cortex, your parasympathetic nervous system.
Right.
So some of that is, being mindfully aware of what's happening. Some of it is asking yourself a question. So that's when I'm raging, that's usually where I start, is I ask myself some sort of question that makes me think. And sometimes it's math, which I suck at math. And so I really have to think. Sometimes it's like I'll go into like theory, adult learning theory, but something that's going to force my thinking brain to take over. and then I'll do a quick like 10-minute mindful exercise. And sometimes it's sitting there going, what does the car wheel feel like? And what is this experience? What's coming up for me? How am I seeing through the window? Like, let me find something in the distance to look at, but like using different ways to
Yeah.
manage your own.
Yeah, I guess my question is, how does this type of exercise help you deal with those other types of things where you're boiling over with rage or you're frozen with fear?
Yeah, so it's recognizing what's happening in your body and that it is happening, and it's about the recognition. And recognizing in and of itself can help you get you out of that
Yeah,
situation.
I just feel like though
So,
that those are such strong emotions that
mhm.
compared to this experience that it's totally different. Like, does this really prepare you for that?
It does.
Okay.
It absolutely does because it's building those neural pathways to teach you how to. So the more that you do something, the neural pathways start, and the more you practice it, they groove and groove and groove until
Mm.
it becomes more natural. Like driving, when you were first learning how to drive, it took a long time for those neural pathways to build, and now it's like
Mm.
natural. So it's that practice and practice and practice. And so when you are in that, then it's more of the default to go into mindfulness than it is to rage. So
Okay.
it's changing how you.
And I think that there's also the component that, like, we often think that being afraid or being angry are bad things, which again,
That's
they're
true.
not. They're just fine. If somebody flips you off and you're angry about it, okay. Like,
Yeah.
it might be a completely reasonable response. I may have like the upper hand. I should be able to be angry right now. And so acknowledging, like, I'm angry and being like, it's fine that I'm angry, but what do I want to do with it?
Yeah.
Do I want
Right.
to let this ruin my day? Maybe not. The guy flipped me off. I've probably flipped off 6 other people on the way to this moment, so I'm, causing just as much of a stir. Or is it that, like, do I need to anchor in this? Is this a fear or is this an anger that requires some sort of action based from it, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're afraid, you freeze. And, like, in that moment, you have to decide, do I stay here and be afraid? Is this something that I should be afraid of, or do I need to make a different choice, right?
Mhm.
So this is where, when I think about the self-talk, where they're like, there's good, and then like this whole body positive movement that's happening, and you're like, I want to be like that, or there's the negative and the bad. But the reality of it is that emotions and feelings are not either thing.
Yeah.
The label of good or bad are bullshit.
Yeah. That's
So
societally based. Yeah.
it's a whole separate conversation. But when we're angry, we think we have to do something because we're not allowed to be angry. You are allowed to be angry. Anger is fine. Be mad. But then, like, mindfulness allows us to be intentional about what comes next from this anger. So when we stop and we're like, I'm angry, and we're like, it's fine that I'm angry. It's okay. This is a reasonable reason to be angry. What do I want to do with this anger, right? Is it that I need to go, work out and work this out? Is it that I need to write a scathing email? Like, whatever that may be, you still make a choice when you're coming out of your anger. And mindfulness allows you to make an intentional choice instead of an emotionally driven choice. So that's where, like, something that, like, when you're being mindful and you're stopping and you're pausing in those moments and acknowledging whether it's the smell of your drink or whether it's that my body is elevated or whether it's that my dog is chewing on a bone at the worst possible time, right? Like, you're acknowledging these things, and it helps to take that mind away from the emotional into the intentional.
Naming it.
So you're saying, I'm angry, and while, like, society has told us for a million years you're not allowed to be angry, which is total crap. You say, I'm angry, I'm allowed to be angry. How do I choose to manage this? Right? It's slowing it down, because otherwise we get into the, I'm angry, I unleash my anger because you should now feel the punishment and the wrath of my anger. Or you too should be angry, and then we can be angry together. So when you look at something like this, it feels sometimes small, and it feels like, well, that's too simple to sit down and enjoy a beverage. Or to recognize, like, in addiction, a lot of time the addiction comes from the sound of the crack of a can. That's why people choose cans over bottles, is because it's the satisfaction of the crack, right? So, like, all of these things are triggers. All of these things are stuff that starts to change the way our mind thinks. And this is just one that leads us into a space of happiness or positivity for me in this current moment. And those other triggers that lead us down a negative route require the same thing from us. It requires us to stop and acknowledge, this is happening. How do I choose to do with it? What do I want? What's the next step? So, but it's okay to be angry. It's just the intentional piece comes next. The emotion itself is not the intentional part.
Yeah.
It's the next thing that happens is where mindfulness creates intentionality.
Yeah, it's the response. How you respond.
Yep.
Cool, like that. Anything else?
That's all I have. Any closing comments?
I don't know.
No?
Crackemire wisdom.
Put it in the book.
Write a book.
Someday I'll write a book with all of my little innuendos.
Well, thank you both for doing this with us.
Yeah,
It
thank you
means
so
a lot
much.
to me.
I'm happy to.
Yay.
Cheers.
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 I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.